Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shila Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Shila Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Shila Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotratipasi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Sutasri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. To begin, I will read some introductory marks about cooperation, and then I will proceed to discuss the mood that should exist among devotees, which will facilitate their cooperating for the service of the Lord. In Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada told the devotees, as Tamal Krishna Goswami recorded in his diary, quote, "Your love for me will be tested how after my departure you maintain this institution. We have glamour and people are feeling our weight. This should be maintained." Later, Tamal Krishna told Satsvarupa Das Goswami that Prabhupada had said, Your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate to keep this institution together after I am gone. The same message. Bhakti True Swami recalled, quote, when Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan during his last days, Tamal Krishna would read him the letters that devotees wrote to him, to Srila Prabhupada, and his divine grace would dictate his replies. And sometimes he would also make comments. One devotee had written that he wanted to offer his longevity to Srila Prabhupada so that Prabhupada could continue to be with us on this planet. It was a very sweet letter, steeped with emotion. Srila Prabhupada, however, reacted in a rather unusual way and commented that our real love for him would be shown by how we cooperate with each other to continue his mission. That incident left a very deep impression in my heart, and I became aware that the best way to show my love for Srila Prabhupada is through my cooperation with the devotees of ISKCON, who are serving his divine grace so sincerely to continue his mission. Srila Prabhupada had made the same point in a letter in 1973. Quote, the test of our actual dedication and sincerity to serve the spiritual master will be in this mutual cooperative spirit to push on this movement and not make factions and deviate. So I looked in the dictionary for the definition of cooperate. 1, to act or work with another or others. Act together or in compliance. 2, to associate with another or others for mutual benefit. And the definition of cooperation: the actions of someone who is being helpful by doing what is wanted or asked for. Common effort. So now I will read a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that explains how we should see one another and relate to one another. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, Text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sayadanuvrata pumsam pashubudir vidiyate anya esha tatanyoham iti beda katasati. Sayadanuvrata pumsam pashubudir vividyate anya esha tatanyoham iti beda gatasati. Translation: when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pundit and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. I'll read the translation again. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of his devotional service, one becomes a pundit and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When Prahlad Maharaj's teachers and demoniac father asked him how his intelligence had been polluted, Prahlad Maharaj said, "As far as I'm concerned, my intelligence has not been polluted. Rather, by the grace of my spiritual master and by the grace of my Lord, Krishna, I have now learned that no one is my enemy and no one is my friend. We are all actually eternal servants of Krishna." So Lord Chaitanya says, Jiver Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. The constitutional position of the living entity is that he's eternal servant of Krishna. So if we see one another as eternal servants of Krishna, or servants of the servants of Krishna, then our relationships with one another will be congenial, and we will be able to cooperate very nicely for the service of the Lord. So back to the purport. We are all actually eternal servants of Krishna, but under the influence of the external energy, we think that we are separatedly situated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as friends and enemies of one another. So obviously, if we're going to cooperate for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and the service of Sri Krishna, we can't be thinking of one another in terms of friends and enemies. So, we are all actually eternal servants of Krishna, but under the influence of the external energy, we think that we are separately situated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as friends and enemies of one another. This mistaken idea has now been corrected, and therefore, unlike ordinary human beings, I no longer think that I am God and that others are my friends and enemies. I think of my dear God brother Burijan Prabhu, who very nicely expressed the psychology of the conditioned soul. Of course, we may not think of it in such explicit terms, but it really comes to it. Burijan Prabhu says that everyone is walking around with the idea of saying, "Excuse me, please. I have a very important announcement to make. I am the center of the universe, and everyone should cooperate with my desires." Burijan Prabhu also gave the example that Each of us lives life as if it were a drama or a movie in which we are the hero or the heroine, and everyone else is the supporting cast meant to support us in our exploits as a hero or heroine. So you can imagine how much conflict will arise because everyone is thinking, I'm the hero, you're supposed to support me. And the other one is saying, no, I'm the hero, you're supposed to support me. And in this way, there is so much conflict. So reading this, I thought of Burijan Prabhu's beautiful presentation, because Prahlad says, I no longer think that I am God and that others are my friends and enemies. Now I am rightly thinking that everyone is an eternal servant of God and that our duty is to serve the Supreme Master. For then we shall stand on the platform of oneness as servants. Demons think of everyone as a friend or enemy. But Vaishnavas say that since everyone is a servant of the Lord, everyone is on the same platform. Therefore, a Vaishnav treats other living entities neither as friends nor as enemies, but instead tries to spread Krishna consciousness, teaching everyone that we are all one as servants of the Supreme Lord, but are uselessly wasting our valuable lives by creating nations, communities, and other groups of friends and enemies. Everyone should come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and thus feel oneness as a servant of the Lord. Although there are 8,400,000 species of life, a Vaishnav feels this oneness. So, my dear devotees, Srila Prabhupada is saying that a Vaishnav feels oneness with all living entities because he sees that ultimately every living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna. So what to speak of seeing one another as eternal servants of Krishna, who are actually endeavoring to serve Krishna and develop love for Krishna. So how much oneness we should feel with one another. The Ishopanishad advises Ekatvam Anupashyataha, Ishopanishad Mantra 7. A devotee should see the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be situated in everyone's heart, and should also see every living entity as an eternal servant of the Lord. This vision is called Ekatvam, oneness. Although there is a relationship of master and servant, both master and servant are one because of their spiritual identity. This is also Ekatvam. The actual fact is that everyone is a servant of the Lord, as confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jiver Swarupai Krishna Nityadas. As servants of the Lord, we are one, and there can be no question of enmity or friendship. If one actually understands that every one of us is a servant of the Lord, where is the question of enemy or friend? Now, my dear devotees, we come to the last paragraph of this beautiful purport. And everyone should listen very attentively, because here Srila Prabhupada describes exactly how we should relate with one another, which will form the basis of our cooperation and service to Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada says, everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. I'll repeat that. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking, Vaikuntha thinking. There may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing service, but in the Vaikuntha planets, the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. This is Vaikuntha competition. So Srila Prabhupada has explained the difference between transcendental competition and mundane competition. In transcendental competition, one recognizes and appreciates the service of the other devotee. But still one thinks, this devotee is doing such nice service to please Krishna. I want to do even better service to please Krishna. So there's competition, but with the recognition of and acknowledgement of the value of the other devotee's service. Whereas in mundane competition, there can be envy, in which one devotee thinks, oh, everyone's praising that other devotee, but I don't think that other devotee's so great. I know more about that other devotee than you all do, and that other devotee's not what you think. So in the material world, there's envy, but in the spiritual world, there's no envy. There may be transcendental competition in which one appreciates the service of another servant, yet wants to excel it. But there's no envy or denying the value of the other devotee's service. So, there may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing devotional service. But in the Vaikuntha planets, the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. This is Vaikuntha competition. There is no question of enmity between servants. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. So this is also a very important point in relation to cooperation. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability. In other words, in a mood of mundane competition with envy, we may try to keep someone down. We may try to keep someone from realizing their full potential in devotional service, which is completely against the mood of cooperation. So everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. Since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. This is so beautiful. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisanivisto matasmitirgyanam apohanam cha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, giving dictation according to the attitude of the servant. So here, indirectly, Srila Prabhupada is alluding to the principle of unity in variety. That there are varieties of devotees who perform varieties of service, but there's unity because they're all serving Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srila Prabhupada even said that in Mayapur, the goal of the GBC, or the endeavor of the GBC should be how to achieve unity in variety. And that is Vaishnavism. Yeah, if there's only unity but no variety, that's impersonalism, impersonal oneness. And if there's only variety but no unity, that's materialism. But Krishna consciousness means unity and variety. So, since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto matasmitirgyanam apohanam cha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart, giving dictation according to the attitude of the servant. However, the Lord gives different dictation to the non-devotees and devotees. The non-devotees challenge the authority of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the Lord dictates in such a way that the non-devotees forget the Lord's service life after life and are punished by the laws of nature. So we should respect the service of other devotees, that they are also being guided by Krishna according to the attitude of the servant. When a devotee very sincerely wants to render service to the Lord dictates in a different way. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Te sham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Everyone is actually a servant, not an enemy or friend. And everyone is working under different directions from the Lord, who directs each living entity according to his mentality. So again, unity in diversity. Everyone is actually a servant. That's unity. And everyone is working under different directions from the Lord, who directs each living entity according to his mentality. That is diversity. So in a sense, cooperation means acting on the platform of unity in diversity in service to Guru and Krishna. And when we act in that cooperative spirit, Krishna is pleased. There are many nice verses and purports in Srimad Bhagavatam about how Krishna is pleased when devotees cooperate and work together in service to the Lord. So that is our ideal, cooperation, and it can be achieved easily with the proper mentality, as described in this beautiful verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada from the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have passed about 45 or 50 minutes, and in the remaining 10 or 15 minutes, or however much we are allowed, we can open the floor or open the microphone to the devotees for comments or questions. Is that all right, Prashanta Devi Dasi?
Yes, Maharaj, sure. I see the hands are already going up. Ambika?
Okay, you call on them.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for the wonderful class, and please accept my humble obeisances. I wanted to ask about the friendship. So we still have the concept of friendship. So how can we utilize that in cooperation? Is it always creating a duality, or can we still, because of course our hearts more easily connect with other persons than other persons. So is there like souls that are more compatible, or is it always the same on the transcendental platform?
That's a very important question. We want to, keep friendly relations with all devotees, but still, among devotees, we may have some special friends, with whom we feel a greater bond in service to Guru and Krishna. So that's natural. That we'll have some special friends. That's all right. But still, we should have a friendly attitude towards all the devotees. But among the devotees, we can still have special friends. That's natural. Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll call on Rajeshwar Gauranga Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandot Pranam Maharaj. Maharaj, cooperation means that means also a sacrifice, no? Like and tolerance also, like tolerating the mistakes, maintaining the patience. So this is one thing. And we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam that as you explained that Vaikuntha planets, everybody has service attitude, everybody has cooperation mood. So, but they are exalted devotees, and there is no fault. They don't do any mistake. A peaceful condition, peaceful mind, not agitation is there. But we are living in spiritual, in material world. So each and every person has more or less some defects. So in this regard, cooperation is a bit challenging maybe, but there are no question of, everybody has cooperation mode because everybody is exalted devotee. There is no mistake among the devotees. So, but we still compare to the Vaikuntha planet, like, how they deal with each other. Could you please explain this fact, Maharaj?
But the instructions that Srila Prabhupada gave in his purport are meant to guide us in our relationships with one another here in the material world. Although Srila Prabhupada did say that his temples are Vaikuntha. What is Vaikuntha? Vaikuntha is the place where everyone cooperates for the service of the Lord. And so in ISKCON, we are meant to cooperate for the service of the Lord. And in that sense, our temples are as good as Vaikuntha. The fact that a devotee may make a mistake, well, that also depends on how you define mistake. I think of one letter that somebody wrote to Srila Prabhupada. You could say complaining about some behavior of devotees. And, Srila Prabhupada wrote back that, they've surrendered their lives to Krishna. They're greater than kings, and so even if they may make some mistake, we shouldn't take it so seriously, because they're to Krishna, which is never a mistake. So, yeah, we should see the bigger picture. And if the mistake needs to be corrected, that's not a problem. Devotees should be ready to be corrected if necessary. But as Srila Prabhupada said, the correction should be done with sympathy. Then it's more likely to be accepted rather than, out of anger or frustration or hatred. So, yeah, we should be ready to be corrected for our benefit. But yeah, with respect and with sympathy. Hare Krishna, Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have Bhakta Pratik from Surat.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. I had a question regarding individuality of a devotee. That when we enter this movement, so we talk about university and diversity, but we often see that when devotees of different, when devotees of similar mood come together, those devotees who are of different mood often get neglected, or they get a little left out. They are not able to maintain their individual mood because the collective mood is a little different than their mood. So how do we maintain our individual mood in if the collective mood is little different?
It's a very good question. Can you give an example to illustrate your point?
Uh,
Yeah, how that
a
someone.
gross example can be like devotees interested in kirtan. They come together. They explore various musical aspects of kirtan. But a devotee who is very enthusiastic in deity worship, or maybe another area of worship, maybe another anga of bhakti, gets left out. He feels disconnected from those devotees and that particular group of devotees. So he also, against his mood, goes and tries to do something in music or kirtan, but does not get that taste. This is little gross example, Maharaj. I could not think of any other example, but
That's okay. Well, yeah, I mean, in one sense, there are 9 processes of devotional service, as stated by Prahlad Maharaj. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyamat, Manivedanam. And we should appreciate all the different processes, and we should appreciate the devotees who engage in various processes. And I might be more inclined to deity worship, but still, if devotees are gathering for kirtan, I mean, kirtan is for everyone. So I can also join them. It may not be the other way around, that if there's, may or may not be, if there's some seminar on deity worship, they may not want to participate if they don't do deity worship. But yeah, we should, follow our hearts. If we have an inclination towards a certain type of devotional service, we should follow our hearts and do it, where we have taste. That's very precious if we have taste for some particular type of service. And, yeah, some devotees say, following your example, they're inclined to deity worship. So, their service may not be appreciated by everyone, but it will be appreciated by please the devotees, but our primary focus in bhakti is to please Krishna. And we want to please the other devotees, not because we want to be popular with them or appreciated by them for the gratification of our egos, but we want to please the other devotees in the mood of pleasing Krishna, because Krishna is pleased when the devotees are pleased in that mood of service. But yeah, we should be conscious and not. We should try to make all the devotees feel included. We shouldn't let devotees feel they're excluded because, their mood is not the same as ours, in service. So I'm glad you brought that up.
thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Next, we have Lalita Prichimai from South India.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, my question is, like we have some temple authority. They may be even our spiritual guide also, and they give a particular instructions to us because they know us very personally, and sometimes that instructions may not be very suitable for us to the particular circumstances, like maybe situation at present now. And what if that authority is also our parent, and there is an emotional exchange also? So how to take it as an instruction from the authority or as a parent? So when we get into this emotional mixture, so how do we take decisions, Maharaj? How do we cooperate with that?
Well, again, I think it would be helpful for the discussion if you gave an example, a hypothetical, theoretical example.
Maharaj, for example, now, previously I desired to do a course on deity worship, but at that time they say, no, you better engage in the spiritual studies. So now I'm engaging in spiritual studies, and now they say, okay, now it's the time you go and do your deity worship course, but I'm now not more interested in that. So how do I take decisions now?
I think you could just tell them frankly that, there was a time when you wanted to take that course. You didn't well, I don't know if you want to say that. They know they didn't let you. But now that time has passed. I don't, yeah, I mean, I think in general that if a child shows interest in devotional service, the parents should encourage it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know why they didn't encourage you to take the course at the time when you wanted to take it. But, from the parents' side, I would say, as a rule, they should encourage their children in whatever service the child wants to pursue. And now at this stage, you can think that, one day you might be a parent and you might be in similar situations where you have to guide your children, and maybe this will be an instructive experience for you to consider when you become a parent. Well, why don't you want to take the deity worship course now?
Maharaj, I'm studying my 10th canto, so I just wanted to finish that. I don't want to stop in between.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Srimad Bhagavatam's like a deity. And just like with the deity, we begin our meditation on the lotus feet, and then we gradually move our meditation upwards. So we start on the lotus feet of the Lord, the first canto, first two cantos, and then gradually we come to the smiling face of the Lord, which is the 10th canto. So good for you.
Hare Krishna. Lalita Pritimai happens to be the daughter of a temple president who probably needs pujaris right now. Therefore the dilemma. Yes, life is tough, isn't it? So we already 8:34. I see one more hand up, and I personally wanted to ask a little question. Can we take 2 questions, Maharaj, or should we take 1 question?
We can take 2.
Okay, so Amritesh Gordas, please.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, I have a small question in relation to what Pratik Prabhu also asked. Maharaj, sometimes our authorities assign us some service and they know that what our nature is, but sometimes they tell us that kindly cooperate because they think that there are so many services to be performed when they are managing the temple, and they want us to do that particular service even though they know that our capacity or our skills are not upon that. And that time sometimes we feel very disheartened because we are not so much close about doing that kind of service. How can we take this spirit of cooperation?
We may have our inclination to do a particular type of service, but we should be ready to do the needful. Srila Prabhupada often said, do the needful. So if you're needed to do some other service that is not according to your nature or propensity, you should do it, in the spirit of cooperation. If it becomes a regular thing that you're asked to do things that go against your nature, that might not be so good. But once in a while, if you're asked to do something that's against your nature for this, according to the necessity of the situation, you should do it.
Thank you, Maharaj. One short, I have one more query. Sometimes because of that service, we have to sacrifice our study of Srila Prabhupada books and we are not able to hear or read so much. So we feel little not so nourished in our spiritual life. That's why we become little concerned about it. So as you said, over the time, if it repeats, then should we approach the authorities and tell them to rethink about the services they have given us?
Well, it seems that that's not so much a question of what the service is, but it's just that the quantity of the service is such that you're not getting time to read. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah. I think you could certainly bring that up to your authorities. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to read his books. I mean, in many places he said 3 hours a day. Certainly he said 1 hour a day, very frequently. So I think that you would be justified. And you could add that, that reading Srila Prabhupada's books gives you energy and enthusiasm, and you'll do better service if you're given that facility to read Srila Prabhupada's books, which he wanted.
Yes, thank you so much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I wished to bring up one point. The quotes you were reading, first of all, I wanted to request you, if possible, to please share all the quotes that you had gathered on cooperation so that we can distribute them to all the devotees who attended the classes, because the quotes were so inspiring and very practical also. And the latest ones that we heard and the Bhagavatam verse that we heard, it was so hope-giving. It was so wonderful. And I would say how devotees are free to develop all their potential in the service of Krishna. This was so inspiring. And I would say that it is this kind of quotes that attach us to the Hare Krishna movement and that are very enlivening when we come to Krishna consciousness. But we also hit a wall sometimes, because this is like pure Krishna consciousness, so wonderful. But at the same time, our movement has also been requested to follow some of the values of the Varnashram system. And when this is mixed up with devotional service, then for some of the individuals, it becomes a great challenge to actually be engaged according to one's propensities and to be able to serve to one's topmost capacity, because you always have to be very precise with the questions. And I would say for those who are in women bodies, for example, when you go to an ISKCON temple, you are faced basically with a long list of don'ts and can'ts.
Oh.
So how do we keep our enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness, our desire to serve, and our how do we cooperate with authorities which restrain the devotees' engagement in devotional service?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that so much because I was with Srila Prabhupada in India, and he always encouraged the women. He gave them all facility to render service. So I wasn't really aware of that. But then when I came to America, I met a lady in a shop, I think. I met her in a shop. And when she saw me, you know, she said, Hari Bol. So I said, how do you know Hari Bol? And she replied that I lived in an ISKCON temple for some time. But the ladies were all forced to sit at the back of the temple room and make garlands. And I just didn't feel fulfilled being put in that position. And hearing that, I felt sort of sorry, because she was a very sincere person, but she just felt too limited by her being, well, not limited by being a woman, but limited by the attitude, I suppose, of the authorities towards her being a woman. That was some years ago. I hope it's not the same. Once I visited the Columbus Temple, this was many years ago, and it was basically all women under Malati. And I remember, like, during deity greeting and everything, like, all the women were at the front and I was at the back. And I thought, oh, so that's what it feels like. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, but coming back to your specific question, like the list of don'ts and can'ts, like what's on that list, for example?
What would be on that list? Well, for example, a women kirtanir, for example. A women has a great propensity to, I'm sorry, I'm going to close the window. The monkeys are making lots of noise.
I was wondering what that was.
Yes. Yes, for example, a female kirtaniya, someone who has a propensity to sing, naturally coming to the Hare Krishna movement, would naturally be drawn to that. We heard pratik, like people are drawn to certain services, or someone may be drawn to deity worship. So one will actually meet a block, depending which temple they come in touch with, but especially in the congregations, sometimes things are a bit more open. But when we come to these contemples, many times a woman will never be given the microphone to lead kirtans. In some places, women are not allowed to do deity worship. So that kind of blocks the flow of one is inspired towards a certain service, and the service is not accessible and will not be on the basis of the bodily concept. And so how do we cooperate with this, and how do we function? That's just, so this is some example. Or for example, in our society, there's a lot of controversy about women in leadership positions. So there is a lot of, and unfortunately, I don't know how it was in previous ages, but in this age, it's almost like the propensities are there in very indiscriminately, it seems, in all the different human beings, regardless of whether they are male or female. And we have many males who have absolutely zero leadership qualities. And then you have women who are Brahminical. It's very mixed up. And however, when we apply the principles of an ashram according to bodily designations, then the propensities seem to be suppressed instead of being encouraged and engaged. So it's a great dilemma for one who seeking to, as you said, give one's life to Krishna.
Maybe the situation you're describing is more prominent in India. I know in Dallas, the ladies lead kirtan a lot, and yeah, they're welcome to. And at the major kirtan festivals, I mean, in Dallas, they have one called Kirtan 50, but there are many all over the world. And the women often lead kirtan at those festivals. But in India, it might be different. In Juhu, I wouldn't say Srila Prabhupada established it, but he had blessed it. That every Tuesday afternoon, ladies would come to the temple, and they would lead kirtan in the temple. That was like their time to lead kirtan, and that seemed like a nice adjustment. And in Juhu also, Srila Prabhupada encouraged the ladies to have their own reading groups. Srila Prabhupada had a devotee named Mrs. Singhal, Nirmala Singhal, very nice devotee. And Prabhupada encouraged her that she should have women get together and read to them, from Prabhupada's books. So Prabhupada was very flexible in terms of engaging women. And of course, Yamuna Devi was, expert in singing, leading kirtan. Prabhupada gave her many opportunities. And she could speak. Prabhupada would call on her to speak. And she was expert in deity worship. But sometimes there's local conventions. Like from the very beginning, when we opened the big temples in India, in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Juhu, the women should not what people accept traditionally in India, in temples. So although all along the women were doing deity worship, he did make that rule in the big temples in India. And he said that some people already have doubts that we're hippies. And if they see that we have women on the altar in these big temples, they may feel their doubts are confirmed, that we're hippies. But not only women, everyone at some stage may be in a situation where he or she needs to sacrifice, so to speak, something of their propensity. I didn't particularly like managing, I preferred preaching, but Srila Prabhupada put me in charge of Juhu. And I'll never forget that. There was a big meeting in Srila Prabhupada's room, like who is going to take charge. And, the atmosphere was quite tense. And then suddenly, to everyone's surprise, including mine, Srila Prabhupada said, so Giriraj, you will take charge? And I was thinking, oh no, that's not why I came to Bombay. I didn't say that, but I was thinking that's not why I came to Bombay. But with my intelligence, I understood that we should follow the order of the spiritual master, and that the pleasure of the spiritual master is the perfection of service. So, I said, all right, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it. And then Srila Prabhupada said, so now the whole responsibility is on you. And I thought, oh my God, I mean, it was like, of course, there's the mind and the intelligence, but my mind was thinking, like, he's rubbing it in. Why can't he see how much of a test of my surrender it is? And now he's rubbing it in by saying, now the whole responsibility is on you. But yeah, sometimes we do surrender what is according to our nature to do something that's needed, for a higher cause, and we get blessings for that.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think we should stop here. There is still one hand up, but the time has come. I think we should stop. So this is actually a painful time. We are going to be separated from you, and we'd like to have you again if you are pleased with us a little bit. Maybe you can agree some other time. We are functioning year after year, Krishna allowing, so we may invite you again some other time to enlighten us on specific topics, or yes.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And meanwhile, I'll send you the compilation of quotations as an attached document by email. Yeah.
Yes, that will be very great. We will give it to everyone. I'm sure they'll be very happy to have it.
Yeah.
So once again, Maharaj, we express our gratitude for you to come And we deeply appreciated your wonderful presentation based on Srila Prabhupada's wonderful quotes and your deep realizations of the subjects over your many years of service and leadership in ISKCON. So we feel most blessed to have had your very senior association, very peaceful association. Thank you for the wonderful singing of the Mangalacharan, and thank you for everything, Maharaj.
So we're going to end now. I suggest we conclude with Vaishnava Pranam. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Nantakoti Vaishnava Vindiki Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Maharaj. Thank you very much. Gauranga.
Gauranga.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.